thank you for coming out. You know, we're celebrating our return to in-person events, and we're also celebrating the launch of our literary magazine, Pueo. It's our annual literary magazine and our fabulous student writers. I'm Susan St. John. I teach here in the English department, and I also coordinate the Out Loud in the library. Thank you. The Out Loud in the library is a collaboration between the Language Arts Department and the library. And I really want to thank our wonderful librarians, in particular, Ellie Seaton and Christy Laws. They're probably somewhere. But without their help, you know, these events wouldn't happen. They're working overtime to keep the space open for us. So we have a really full night. We have our 4 faculty readers, and our first faculty reader is Robert Barclay, reading from his novel, Bastards in the Wilderness. Robert is a father, a teacher, a writer, a publisher, a filmmaker, and trail runner who lives in Kaneohe, Hawaii. So please welcome Robert Barclay.
Okay. Any notes? Just turned 60. My mind wanders. I might wander. If I do, just turn me around. I'll try and pick it up. Glasses too. Jeez. Okay, so when I first conceived of this book, you got to come up with a book description. So this was my first stab at it. This book is about a bunch of self-absorbed and big dreaming bastards trying hard but failing at life in the fictional town of Vista. It's also a metafictional and tragicomic satire of humanity's quixotic battle with mortality and how this leads to an ironic evolutionary impulse towards self-destruction. And I thought, God, that's all boring and academic and stuff. So, and because I made myself one of those self-absorbed characters in the book, I said, well, I've got to write it as the character that's playing myself. So the actual book description reads, a book that doesn't give a rat's ass if you read it or like it or not. Bastards in the Wilderness is about just that, a bunch of bastards in the wilderness, however you want to interpret it. Oh, perfect. And then again, because I'm one of those self-absorbed characters, the dedication page reads, for me.
Very funny there.
I broke something. David, is this important? Oh, okay. Sorry, Zoom people. Okay. So in a nutshell, what's going on in the book is starts off as almost a kind of story collection. And then characters start moving in and out of each other's stories, and they slowly realize that they're in a novel, and they become aware that the novel is coming to an end, or a denouement, as the self-absorbed writer calls it, and they start to panic. They don't know what to do because the ending's coming. And then there's also a self-absorbed serial killer running through the chapters based on my friend Chris McKinney, who's also a writer. So it's a very odd sort of metafictional book. Today I'm going to read sort of a rant, or in literary terms, a dramatic monologue from my character Connor, who's talking to his waiter. So here it goes. Oh, wait, I forgot. Paper was folded. I have to give a trigger warning. There will be violence, sexism, foul language, a sexual reference, probably other offensive stuff in here. So if anybody is sensitive to that, now is the time you can step away for about 5 minutes. Well, that says a lot about you people. Okay. All right, here it goes. It's about Connor. He goes vegan. He's no, I know what I'm not. No, I know what I want. That's not the problem. Like, check this out. I come here for a cheap vacay with my chick, and she gets this idea we should stay, go vegan, be one with nature. I mean, you got the lake, that mountain we just heard about, all the forests and canyons just a few miles away, a wilderness paradise, am I right? So we get this shit-ass pad and some shit-ass jobs, but we're digging it out in God's country every chance we get. So I'm like, okay, cool, let's go vegan. But wait, she says, and I'm like, what? Then she gets all drunk and meets this dude from LA, Jay Ree or something. And they split back to LA together in the car we bought together. Like, what the fuck, you know? I didn't want to live in that shit-ass pad anymore thinking about her. So I got me a tent and mountain biked it out to the wilderness. Hardcore, you know, living on the land, serious mountain man shit. Except I could get a little Wi-Fi. And the campground bathroom was pretty close too. 40 minutes is all it took me to bike back into town for work. And I'm like, you know what? I'm still going to do the vegan thing. So I Google it, you know, really Google it. And it's like, you can't even eat chicken or fish, but no problems. I was starting to feel a real connection with animals after, you know, living with them a bit. Even the coyotes, those bastards, always squalling like a bunch of chihuahuas and stealing my shit. I still tried to make friends. Anyway, you'd think being vegan would be super cheap, right? No, hell no. I'm at the checkout in Vista Vegan, and I had to ask my stepdad to put more cash in my phone. And he gets all pissed, so I had to talk to my mom, and I'm like, whatever, it's for the planet, man. Then I really started getting into it, like no eggs or dairy. And when I'm in stores, I got to read all the boxes and ask a ton of questions because people put so much animal products and shit like you wouldn't even know. That's where it's like a full-time job being vegan. But I'm feeling pretty good, right? Like I'm at peace with myself, except I am so freaking hungry. And I finally understand why what a cow does all day is eat grass. I mean, I'm never full if I'm just eating greens. And it makes you really gassy too, by the way. Just stand next to a cow sometimes, like right by its ass, and you know what I'm doing like 20 times a day. And then to make it worse, I start thinking plants got a right to live too. Am I right? Imagine being a carrot plant and you get yanked out of the ground just so somebody can eat your root, which for a plant, it's like it's fucking brains. So I go hardcore. I'm talking mega vegan, just eating fruits and nuts and berries, anything that doesn't actually involve killing something. I swear, if Mother Nature was a real chick, she'd be blowing me at this point. But then I start thinking, nuts and berries are like little eggs, right? Like there's some little blueberry plant that's not going to live now because I ate its eggberry thing. So this morning, I wake up, I'm feeling like freaking Hitler. Like just to stay alive, I got to be some mass murderer, whether I like it or not. And I was so fucking hungry. I didn't know what the hell to do. So I went up a hill like you're supposed to do, and I started meditating. I'm not talking some peaceful relaxation shit. I'm talking full-on Zen warrior meditation, digging down to the base of, you know, my whatever the fuck it is. And I wasn't going to move until an answer came to me. Then this bunny hops in my lap, a little baby bunny. And I'll never forget those eyes, man. So big and round and looking at me with all the love in the world. You know, but that's how Zen works sometimes. So I asked her straight up, little bunny, what am I gonna do? I swear right then it hopped off my lap and started darting away and coming back again. Like I should follow it somewhere, almost like a dream. But don't think you're gonna hear how I found some hole to Wonderland, dude. No way, didn't get a fucking chance because some goddamn coyote bounced up on the hill and one more hop is all my little bunny got. That mangy fucker bit her head clean off and disappeared with the rest of it. Boom, the whole thing over in like 2 seconds. Then it was all quiet again. Everything the same as before, except for the head still there with a string of meat hanging off and some bunny fur in there. Me, I'm still sitting with my legs folded up. And that's when the answer finally hit like a fucking brick. So you know what I want, right? No, I don't want a fucking salad. I want the ribeye. And I want it rare too, like I better be licking blood off of it. Then I'm busting it to LA where I'm going to wreck that J. Ree motherfucker and get my goddamn car back. Oh, and an iced tea. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Robert. So our next reader is Desi Poteet, and she's reading from her fiction book, The Grace of Dark Times. Desi holds an MA in English, creative writing, and an MFA in professional screenwriting. As an assistant professor, she encourages her students to discover and honor their unique voices as storytellers. She lives in Punaluu, where she pursues characters through the corridors of her imagination and dances joyfully with her muses. Please welcome Desi Poteet.
I wish I was dancing with my muses more often than I do. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you. So this is a collection called Grace of Dark Times, and I'm going to read Ghosts of My Own. It's one of the longer pieces. We have a 10-minute, we're just trying to stick to 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the beginning and then the end. The part that I'm not going to read is a reference to when the character is a student at Windward in the 70s. Okay. Ghosts of My Own. It's late and everyone up and down my corridor left for home hours ago. I read student papers in a small circle of light beaming from my desk lamp and use every pen color except red to write words of encouragement and guidance. But the more the stack in front of me shrinks, the more my impatience grows. Each encounter with run-ons and comma splices, apostrophe and hyphen errors, pronoun and subject verb confusion grinds at my nerves. I weigh the wisdom of pushing through the last papers left in the stack against abandoning the essays until my tolerance returns. Il Divo keeps me company, but over the quartet's voices singing La Luna, I can hear footsteps on the veranda, keys clinking, doorknobs rattling, the sounds drawing closer. All three of my doors are locked, the two to the hall and the one to the veranda. I have escape routes and even a closet to hide in, but I usually feel safe in my office, a working space I share with 3 colleagues, 2 of whom I rarely see. Debbie calls out. Then she peers through the louvers, her eyes inspecting my office corner to corner, scanning the inventory, a red 4-drawer file cabinet, 2 red bookcases, 3 desks, 3 chairs, a waste paper basket, a padlocked closet, and me. At first glance, some may be skeptical about Debbie's abilities as a campus security guard. She's a grandmother after all, but I've seen her in action. She took on a tenured professor, making him move his vehicle when he was illegally parked in a handicapped spot. It was a Sunday. The campus deserted, he pointed out, and there were other parking spots nearby, all accessible, but she was adamant. And so the offending professor slunk away to repark his car. I open the door and there she stands, hazel eyes now examining me. I suck in my gut and stand a tad bit straighter, wearing jeans and t-shirt with my campus logo above my left breast, my tangled hair brown threaded with copper and gray falling to my padded waist. I bet Debbie does crunches. Just me and the ghosts, I say, marveling at her trim form. Frankly, I'm still fighting a bout of jealousy. Mary has a ghost and I don't. Mary's office is right across the hall from mine. Since she doesn't share it with anyone, she's free to furnish it with personal items, like comfy chairs and a rug thick enough for an afternoon yoga stretch or a power nap. Today, Mary had invited me into her office to show me her clocks. She has 2 that look exactly like mine. I wasn't sure if I should point out the obvious. The clocks were set at different times and neither in the same time zone as mine. I set these for the same time last night, Hawaii time, and this morning, whoa, look. Not only does Mary have tenure and a PhD in psychology, but she's also pulling double duty as a temporary dean. She seems harmless enough, but I wondered if I'd fallen into a trap, a test of some kind reserved for adjuncts. I scanned her room for hidden recording devices, but only saw wind chimes, dream catchers, mandalas, and bookshelves crammed with trinkets. Someone with a PhD and tenure can afford such choices. English lecturers sharing an office and uncertain of their future should hang pictures of literary icons and line shelves with books on composition, writing pedagogy, Howard Gardner's books on multiple intelligences, and various educational texts. The heavier, the better. In case a dean drops by for a visit or moves in across the hall. Last night, I commandeered the bulletin board in the corridor near my office, covered them in a tropical patterned cloth, and displayed a few inviting headings: writing opportunities, word for the day, writer of the month, determined to create a literary space. But I've been remiss to change the daily word wastrel, which has become a permanent indictment of some students. And the space has just been blighted with flyers for earn from your own home job postings, bitch and surfboards for sale, Zumba sessions, nothing remotely related to the literary arts or writing process. In fact, many of the flyers blatantly ignoring basic grammar rules. Mary, what about changing the batteries in the clocks? I asked. I put in new batteries last night. She peered down the corridor. Ghosts, she whispered. As Mary lit a bundle of sage, Larry, my colleague, exited his office next door. How's grading going? He asked with a mock grimace. Mary has a ghost, I said, hoping to recruit him to her game. La, 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 he said, covering his ears with his hands and bolting past us, no doubt protecting his own bid for tenure. Don't you hear them weeping? Mary asked, waving the smoking sage around her office, attempting to purify and protect her space from uninvited guests at night. It's true, I hear weeping up and down the corridors, but that and hysterical laughter. But I thought it was instructors slogging through stacks of student work. Perhaps decades ago, weeping and hysterical laughter sounded throughout the building too, but then it would have been when patients recovering from alcoholism or fighting auditory and visual hallucinations occupied the entire campus. After I left Mary's office, I called Bob, another colleague and the former occupant, and asked him if he had had any encounters in that office. After he stopped laughing, he told me if I seriously wanted ghosts, there was a place where patients went to hang themselves on the upper campus. You can still see remnants of rope. Ghost, Debbie asks, her voice tugging me back to the present. Oh yes, we have lots of those. She confirms, her thin hand tugging at her ponytail of gray-brown strands. Really? It's one thing for me or even Mary to believe in ghosts, but Debbie, it's hard to take Debbie seriously with her khaki shirt neatly ironed and tucked into perfectly creased black pants. The light glinting off her security badge makes me squint, and I'm certain she's mocking me. Halia Alakai, Debbie points toward the administration building, is full of them. Just the other night, around 9 o'clock, Amy Ching, you know, the new dean, waved to a man standing down the hallway, only to realize he didn't have any legs. I heard there were bodies buried in the administration building, but up till this moment, I thought it was only figurative. You know, the basement was a morgue for a while, Debbie says, and I realize the writer in me is somewhat disappointed her explanation is so ordinary, a morgue. No kidding. When I was a student, it was a campus bookstore. Well, if you want to take a tour, I'll show you what it looks like now. So they're mostly in the old buildings, I ask, avoiding her invitation. It's night, after all. Sure, but I've heard reports that even the new buildings have, you know, residents there too. Debbie checks her cell phone. Flashlight warning in effect. We both walk to the edge of the veranda and peer out into the Makai direction, where you could see the ocean if the high rises of Kaneohe weren't there. And if it were day. The moon, almost full, rises to meet the stars in the clear night sky. Let me know if you need an escort to your car, Debbie says. I'm parked near, I'm just on the other side. Debbie nods. I'm just saying, because there was another breakout, but probably nothing to worry about. The patients don't tend to run towards civilization. I've locked up this building. Keep your doors locked, just in case. As Debbie continues on her rounds, her black boots tapping down the concrete floor, my jealousy over Mary's ghostly resident evaporates at 8:13, the time according to my ghost-free clock, and is now replaced with anxiety over the upper campus resident fleeing through the night. My college wasn't always a college. The older buildings were originally part of the mental health hospital complex known as the Hawaii State Hospital. But over the years, with improvements in medication and treatment, the patient population shrank and the hospital downsized, vacating a number of buildings in the lower section. These abandoned buildings provided a venue for the fledgling community college established in 1972, at a time when I was just surviving my first semester of high school. My future plans vague. Okay, so I'm skipping the part where she goes into a flashback and is talking about when she was in high school and ends up coming to Windward as a student. So now we're back to this part where she's still in her office. I see a flash through the window and brace for the rumble. It's the writer in me who is jealous of Mary and her ghost. I have braved late nights alone in my office, staring at the walls, wondering what secrets this room of former self for patience holds, waiting for a ghost of my own. And it's my writer's imagination that wonders if the escaped patient is running toward the light of my lamp. I wonder if it's someone I know, someone I abandoned in CSU that day when the guards secured the unit, conducting strip searches with each patient while the staff and I, the only volunteer, combed the day room and enclosed yard trying to locate a missing leather punch tool. When the guard unlocked the metal door, permitting our occupational therapy group to return to our lives, no one knew if one of the therapists had miscounted the tools or if one of the patients had hidden it away, waiting to use it as leverage. As I drove away, I didn't know that I would never return to find out if those patients were trustworthy or not. As I brave another student paper and read about the author's descent into and rise from a life of lap dancing, I realize my students have found in me someone with whom to share their own personal ghosts. The murdered boyfriend, the baby killed in a car accident, the newborn, blue and still, the husband discovered by his wife in a backyard tree swinging from a rope, the recovered body of a drowned fiance, and they share their pasts: drug dealer, hooker, alcoholic, convict, addict. I witness them learning to recover their pasts and struggling to understand and embrace their present selves. And I'm surprised to find the ghosts of my 18 and 19-year-old selves guiding and inspiring me, thriving within. I have no delusions about my students becoming published authors, but I can offer my students opportunities to find meaning and direction by discovering their writing voices beyond the grammar and punctuation rules. I survived the scenic life path I took beginning in high school because writing protected me through the difficulties of high school, steered me through the storms of divorce, and comforted me as I mourned the passing of loved ones. As I help my students discover the power and healing of writing, I know I'm offering them one more tool to assist them as they navigate through the challenges of life, stealthily avoiding prison, upper campus, the hanging trees, the morgue. I gather my students' confessions into my satchel, grab my purse, pause Il Divo in the middle of Amazing Grace, and click off the lamp. The rumble comes low and menacing, moaning through the corridor, rattling doors, and yet through my window, I can still see the sky is clear, moonlit and star-studded. I sprint down the corridor, snapping off lights as I pass each switch, throwing darkness in my wake. As I stroll the 20 feet toward my yellow beetle, I glance toward upper campus, checking for movement in the shadows. And then I see the cloud bank lowering a crown over the Ko'olau Range. Drive safely, Debbie calls out from the shadows, and I see her across the narrow roadway, making her rounds at Hale'alaka'i, checking for administrators working into the night. It looks like you were right about the storm, I say, pointing. Debbie just nods and rattles another doorknob. Mary may have ghosts in her office, but as I turn the ignition and warm up Sunny's engine, mine buckle up, ready for the long ride home.
Thank you, Desi. Our next reader is Zack Payne, and he'll read poetry from his book, Beyond Heroin. Zack is a poet and a translator who teaches Spanish here at Windward Community College. As a translator, he's worked with There's all these Spanish names. Okay, Rafael Cadenas, Pablo Guevara, Leopold Maria Panero, and the beat poet Bob Kaufman. As a poet, he has published Robos, Setas, and Sombras, and Termites, the Legal Occupation of Paradise, and Beyond Heaven. Please welcome Zachary Payne.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I teach Spanish here. So hola, ¿cómo estáis? Yeah, so just a strange fact. When I was growing up, didn't like English, like the subject, right? It's my native language, but didn't write. I was more into the science. And so it was actually, I moved to Spain when I was 19. And then I actually lived there for about 15 years and studied Spanish. And it was that studying of Spanish literature that made me wanted to start writing. So actually, the first time I ever wrote poetry was in Spanish. And during my 15 years in Spain, I met my beautiful wife. We got married. And I wrote her a poem that I usually start all my readings with, but it's in Spanish. And so now that I'm living in a place that speaks English, I figured I needed a new poem for her. So a few years ago, I wrote her this poem. It's called The Makings of a Love Poem. My wife is from Spain. When we met, we spoke to each other in Spanish. Still today, it is what we use to communicate. Is love bigger than languages? All I know is that it is impossible to express my affection for her in anything other than Spanish. A simpler and more beautiful version of this poem exists. It starts with compañera, which even though the literal translation is partner in English for me takes on the negative connotations of capitalism. For I was raised in the 80s with Coke, the Cold War, trickle-down economics, Reagan, Thatcher neoliberalism, where the Spanish use of this word inserts itself in Crofton's mutual aid, Tortilla Patata, International Brigades, Lorca and Guernica, and thus becomes comrade. But in English, this is just a little too much. I do believe that the workers should own the means to production, but I don't want to refer to my wife as comrade. I just want the word that captures and expresses that everything and all that we must go through in life, I want to do it with her, my equal, side by side. So every day I must choose, debo elegir my words, mis palabras, y elijo, compañera, compañera, compañera. So when I first moved back to Hawaii, I was working as an exterminator. And amongst the heat and Eva, killing termites, I started writing poems, and it was the first time I started writing really in English. And so all those are kind of collected in this book called Termites, the Illegal Occupation of Paradise. My daughter, the oldest one that's here, she told me to read the bug poem. So I'm going to read a poem from Termites. So, Conversations Amongst Pesticides, 3. The fighter planes fly low and threaten. It's hot, so hot, too hot to kill today. We sign a treaty, the termites and I, more me than them. We interrupt Whitman's diatribe about liberty, making fun of the butterflies in his beard. The butterflies leave, and we all lie down together in the grass and smoke, the only cloud in the sky. In this, we realize that Whitman is crying. The termite asks him the reason for this. He answers that sadly, since he has died, no one is interested in his new poems. So it's a documentary, it's documentary poetry, and it kind of, my poems play off of the apology letter that the United States wrote about the illegal annexation of Hawaii. So my poems have a footnote, and this one is July 7th, 1887, bayonet constitution forced upon King Kalakaua by the all-white Hawaiian League, stripping Kanakamoli of their land rights. So termites, the bug phone for my little daughter. So right during COVID, I published Beyond Heroin. And so this is the first time I've actually been able to read it in public. Beyond Heroin, it's a book that deals with relationships. It deals with the relationship with addiction, and it deals with the relationship with my brother, and it kind of jumps back and forth, flashbacks of things from earlier in my life. And, you know, a lot of it takes place, a lot of the flashbacks take me back to when I was living in Peru. And so here's one of the first poems of the book. I usually don't do titles, so that's why there's no titles. I just jump into it. In a red brick Rambler that sat on a normal street, in a normal neighborhood, in a normal town, in anywhere America, the songs echoed off the walls. I caught you knocking at my cellar door. I love you, baby. Can I have some more? Oh, the damage done. 2 rooms in an unfinished basement. Both had French door closets. These rooms had been finished by the owner. And even though he was good with a hammer, not everything was square, which meant with the closet door shut, the gaps still left enough light for surgical exactness. The kit, a spoon from the kitchen, a waistcoat belt, and a surgical tube that weeks before was being used in the neighborhood water battle. There are only 2 times of shame. The first is a youngster, frustrated as a rabid dog. I called you bitch. Years later, in a pinch to catch that balloon I stole from you. You knew, and I knew that you knew. You said nothing. I said nothing. The storm passes, thunder, lightning, and a little rain. It is spring. The grass grows. Oh, how I love to cut the grass barefoot. Souls of the deepest green. Has a God's ray ever fallen on you? Have you seen the resurrecting flash of the dying sun? We used to walk the river windings. However, some paths one must walk alone. So far away in that gray city, lost between virgins, flowers, and new, there was a cement tightrope that stretched for blocks. On one side, madness, and the other, tomorrow. Anybody can have a good day someday. Sugar and peanut butter sandwiches, an orange astronaut's mustache, and like most children, the boy enjoyed riding bikes and had dreams. So I never like to read a lot from the book, right? Because I always feel like it's, you know, somebody buys a pizza and you've already eaten a bunch of it, right? So I'm gonna read one more poem, and then I'm gonna read a new series that I'm working on. And this is the last poem of the book. Those days on the street, because I had no place to be, no one waiting. I remember the Spanish omelet on the table, a setting for 2, no napkins, a towel we'd share. Hunger hurts, stings at the core. I've grown tired of begging for food or shelter. I find it in no need. I only ask for courage, that in the last moment, as I stare up, I won't panic and search hastily for the surface. Instead, I'll let the water cleanse me of life. Only love can hurt like this. Only love and loss can hurt like this. All right. So, enough with sad stuff, right? So let's go on a happy note. So, what?
But it's real.
So I enjoy surfing quite a bit, and I'm finishing up a book, and it's all related about surf and places. So one of my favorite places to surf is Pipeline, and so this poem's called "The Miracle of Pipe." Energy is neither created nor destroyed, transformed, O goddess, Pele, white dog, old woman, lava and steam, daughter of Mother Earth and Father Sky, tectonic plates dancing slowly over hot spots, Maui's fish hook that raises sea mounts, islands formed. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, transformed, 2 bodies, carnal arousal, an amorous embrace, millions in an open swim, Only one will be triumphant: conception, creation, existence. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, transformed. O lono, holoilo, gratitude, oppositional pressures, highs and lows, movement of air friction, continual disturbance, waves cross oceans like sea voyagers coming home. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, transformed. Morning wakes, red glow, fluid velocity, wave finds reef, amplitude increases, crest steepens, folds, causing cylinder perfection, cavern, hollow, deep, soon consumed and closed. The foundational spit, the fill-smelling squid, the great white bird, intelligence and inspiration, he who sees through darkness, the magical Kanaloa's gift, the breath of life, the miracle of pipe. And to close, we just, back at the end of January, we were able to run the Eddy, and it was amazing. And Luke won, and that was the greatest thing ever. And every year they try to run the Eddy, and it's in honor of Eddie Aikau, a great waterman. And so this poem is called Remember an Eddy, and it's in honor of Eddie Aikau. The bay will call the day as another holding window closes. Remember Eddie. Eddie would go. First in lineage of North Shore watermen rescuers, white hearse, Kane taking form of Pueo, countless lives saved. Eddie would go. Hokulea, our star of gladness, indigenous knowledge that set sail to erase white lies. Ever on that day, the ultimate sacrifice for his friends and crew. Never lost but found, mono, alive, still swimming free, patrolling the oceans. Timeless example of love and aloha. Remember, Eddie went. Thank you.
Thank you, Zack. Our last faculty reader is Adrienne Robilard, and she'll read from her memoir, Maps and Tapes. Adrienne has been teaching English at Windward since 2019. She moved from Kailua to Fresno, California in the 7th grade, which changed her view of the world, herself, and her future. She began her teaching career at Berkeley City College, but left to tour the US and UK as the singer-guitarist of a San Francisco-based indie rock band. Maps and Tapes chronicles her musical journey. So please welcome Adrienne Robilard.
I started writing this during the safer at home period of the pandemic, when I was listening to a lot of music from before, and I realized I was time traveling with music. So rather than just listen to music and time travel as I listened, I decided to write and go back in time too. So come back in time with me to the 80s and then into this century. This is called An Exception to the Rule. My mom signed me up for the youth group at University Presbyterian Church, where she had joined the Sunrise Singles Group. I don't want to go, I said. One more place I wouldn't fit in. Just give it a try, my mom said. My plan was to go once, but Craig and the other youth group leaders introduced me to bands like the Specials, the English Beat, and my favorite Fresno group, the Miss Allens. I went back. Craig sang in a band, the Town Criers, and he invited the youth group to his all-ages shows. Cindy, 2 years ahead of me in high school, had her driver's license, and she lived near me. We saw the Town Criers play with touring bands like the Mummies, going early for the sound check. That year I was grounded for staying overnight at my friend Jenny's when her parents were out of town. The neighbors called the police because a bunch of kids came over and things got wild. But my mom let me go see the Replacements at Fresno State Satellite College Union because Craig had already bought tickets for a few kids from youth group, including me. I got as close as I could to the stage, my heart beating quickly. The Replacements had a video on MTV's 120 Minutes, and I was seeing them live, in person, my one night of freedom before weeks of being grounded. The replacements barely held it together. Any one of them could fall off the stage at any moment. I watched in awe as they just pulled through, finishing each song by a thread. It was exactly how my life felt. I had to learn to play the guitar. This next one, I don't know if anyone was at this show. This is a little later, I think 1988. It's called Aloha Tower. I took my guitar with me to Hawaii for the summer when I stayed at my dad's, spending hours playing chords, going up and down the guitar neck, breaking strings. The summer after my freshman year of high school, I took the bus over the Poly to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers play at Aloha Tower. My friend Nikki and I intentionally arrived hours before the show. We stood outside with dozens of others who, like us, were broadcasting the bands they liked by wearing t-shirts featuring groups like New Order, 9 Inch Nails, and The Cult. John Frusciante, the band's new guitarist, was a teenager like us. The Red Hot Chili Peppers danced on the edge of catastrophe like the Replacements, their show unpredictable, exciting, and loud. The acoustic music I played sounded nothing like the controlled chaos of the Red Hot Chili Peppers or the other bands I was into, but I was getting better at guitar, maybe good enough to be in a band someday. And then fast forward to Tour Diary. This is many years later, South by Southwest, March 15th, 2004. A young lady named Deidre asked me to get on the mic and ask her boyfriend Shane, who was in the bar, to move to Austin. So I did, and we were invited to smoke and shoot guns after the show was done. This one is called Accommodations. Dayton, Ohio was where my grandpa first lived after arriving by ship from China in the 1930s, around age 12, to join his father in America. Citizens here and abroad arrived in Dayton from Chicago on day 7 of our US tour. At the venue, Elbows and Chins, a bartender of ambiguous ethnicity poured us complimentary drinks. I felt like I could blend in. The neon lighting was straight out of Tech Noir, the club Sarah Connor goes to in The Terminator. Everything was cool for a minute. Via email, Dave, who was in one of the other bands and booked the show, had offered us a place to stay after the gig. I had accepted. But when we met, I realized he was a teenager. A feeling of dread came over me. What were the accommodations he had offered? After the show, we loaded our gear into the van. You guys up for going to Denny's? Dave and his girlfriend Amanda asked. It was the perfect opportunity to say there had been a miscommunication. We had booked a hotel. An exit was within reach. A copy of the AAA Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia tour book was in the van. But we said, sure. Dave and Amanda were so nice, we didn't want to be rude. In the Dodge minivan, we followed Amanda's VW Bug to the 24-hour diner. How long do you think we'll be here? I asked. Too long, CW said. The Denny's had the same floor plan as the one my grandpa owned in Fresno, but in Dayton, there were ashtrays in the bathroom stalls. Why is everyone staring at us? Dan said. We're in our 30s hanging out with teenagers after midnight, Chris G said. We're creepy, CW said, and sweaty. Dave and Amanda waved us over to their booth while strangers stared. We ordered food and lots of water. 2 hardcore goths entered the restaurant, taking a booth near ours, and thankfully the eyeballs shifted to them. Amanda played the toy grabbing game in the lobby until our limp sandwiches arrived. Around 2:30 a.m., we trailed the teens to Dave's parents' house, a sizable McMansion embedded in a cul-de-sac. Dave pointed to a flat of muffins in the giant unlit kitchen. My parents got those for you guys from Costco. Amanda and Dave went upstairs, and we took turns brushing our teeth in a nautical-themed bathroom off the kitchen. Numerous framed family photos were arranged on shelves. Dave's parents are probably the same age as us, CW said, pointing at the pictures. Maybe even younger, Chris G said. We could have a house like this, I said, in Ohio. We could have a son who plays in a band, Dan added. Do his parents know his girlfriend is spending the night? I wondered. Shh, Chris B said. Don't get them in trouble. It was hard to stop giggling, but we kept quiet because we respected Dave's parents, who were kind to allow 4 strange adults to sleep in their home and give them giant muffins, and we would have been mortified to meet them. Here's another one with a weird experience, this time in England. It's called Saxmundham. Sarah and Ollie, friends we stayed with in London, said, Saxmundham sounds like a made-up place. The van ran on diesel and the stereo in the cab was missing its face and an operative. So we spent over 2 hours on the A12 looking out the window at the greenery. The White Hart, the venue slash pub slash lodging in Saxmundham, dated from the 17th century. There were flyers for the night's show posted around town, but Citizens Here and Abroad was not listed on them. I spoke with Andrea and Ray Dean, who ran the White Hart. There had been a mix-up. Andrea and Ray Dean added us to the bill and fed us a fish and chips dinner with cans of lukewarm Carscull beer. Up a winding staircase, Andrea showed us beds in a cozy attic where we would sleep and a bathroom where none of us could figure out how to operate the shower. You're a bit different from the other bands tonight, Andrea said with a shrug. We're the only ones from San Francisco, I said. The other bands are still in school, Andrea said. CW laughed nervously. The first group covered Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine and songs by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The second band singer, who doubled as the venue's sound man, had a voice like Tom Waits, unexpected for one so young. The teenage rockers warned us that all the swans in the area belonged to the Queen, and we were not to harm them. Do you have streams in America? They asked. Yes, we said, but we call them creeks sometimes. It was not the best show, and it was not the worst. We were on tour in England. That was enough for me. This is the last one. It's a list. What I wish I knew before touring. Number 1, give up shaving or wax before the tour. The less body hair, the better for not stinking up your clothes. One exception, longer hair on the head can cover up evidence of not having showered recently. Number 2, have LASIK eye surgery to negate the need for contact lenses on tour. Number 3, invest in a quality pair of nail clippers. The ones sold at convenience stores aren't great, and tour hangnails are more than annoying. Number 4, clothes. Layer and spot clean. Pack ample underwear. Throw pairs away and buy new ones as needed. Number 5, pack 2 or 3 pairs of shoes, no more, no less. You'll think you want to throw one pair away during the tour, but keep them. Your feet will get sick of the other pair. Do not take shoes off in the van, ever. Do not allow others to take them off either. Number 6, use the hotel/motel gym. Even 20 minutes on an old treadmill can make you feel so much better after long hours on the road. Number 7, eat fresh fruit and vegetables whenever possible to offset all the crap that you will eat and to avoid constipation. That half tomato with the English breakfast, eat it. That banana in a basket at the 7-Eleven checkout, buy it. Number 8, there will be few ideal situations in which to go number 2. Time will be a factor, so will cleanliness. You will lower your standards. Number 9, pack your own towel, even if it's a hand towel. Anything is better than trying to dry your entire body with a pair of your own jeans. Number 10, if any booker says accommodations included, ask for details. If you have any doubt about where you are staying, pay for a hotel or motel. If you need to, blame it on being allergic to dogs, smoke, dust, perfume, or on your drummer's sleep screaming. The accommodations may be the promoter's home, and he, she, they, their boyfriend, cousin, sister, uncle will want to party, talk, listen to music all night, and you might not want to. You will be tired, you will have fun, you will meet people you'd never have otherwise, and you will be glad we did this.
Thank you, Adrienne, and thank you all the readers. So thank you, Zack and Robert and Desi. Thank you for sharing a little bit of yourself, and thank you for being great colleagues and making Windward a wonderful place to work and go to school. So the next thing I want to do is bring Robert back up. He is our advisor for the Pueo magazine, and he's going to tell us a little bit about our magazine, and he'll introduce our student winners. take that one up.
Okay, no swearing this time, I promise. Okay, before I get to this issue, I do want to mention that, because of the pandemic, we used to do a launch party for the Pueo every year for, decades. And then the pandemic came along and we missed a few, so I want to acknowledge some of the books, all of the books that we never got to really properly launch. One was the, Passages issue of the Pueo, with a lot of journeying themed pieces. Prior to this book, we also started Pueo Press, which publishes single author books. And so in addition to this book, that year we published a novel called The Last Legwoman by Penny Pence Smith. I'll acknowledge Penny. Prior to this issue, we published Leilani Madison's spiritual memoir, Can These Bones Dance? We published Michelle Smith's, where's Michelle? Over there. Oceanography textbook, which is really cool. Michelle also did the cover for this year's issue. 2021, again, no launch party. And we just named this the 2021 issue just because it was such a pivotal year coming out of the pandemic and the chaos of 2020. And we thought, oh, look, but great times are ahead. And like now we we look at the world and like, oh, I hope maybe we can do a 2024 issue that has the same sentiment. And in addition to this book, we published Glenn Freitas's Hawaiian Art Stories 3, Land, Sea, and Sky. Last year, we published the Unmasked issue, because everyone was taking off their masks. But the pieces sort of fit in with a kind of unmasking people, you know, peeling back the layers of their identity. And in addition to this book, we also published a novel, Isabella's Daughter by Angela Nishimoto, which is a very fine novel. So this year's issue, we finally get to do another launch party. Again, Michelle's art. It's a whale surfing with his crab friend. This I thought just really neat. And so we have 3 winners for poetry, prose, nonfiction. I emailed the poetry winner, but she didn't get back to me, so I don't know if she's here. Is Hi'ile Hanohano here? I guess not, but she wrote a beautiful poem, and I'm going to read it really fast. It's only a 1-page poem, just so we can say we read her poem. It's called Poho'olawe by Hi'ile Hanohano. Silence sweeps over the island. For a second, I get to catch a breath. Silence. So quiet I can hear the heartbeat, so slow, yet still holding on. My arms raise in disapproval as the smoke clears. Can you see me? Can you hear the land begging for remorse? Yet I see it flash before me, dropping through the air. And with my heart, silence as the smoke fills the air. A sharp pitch rings in my ear. My vision is clouded. The heartbeat slowly comes to a stop. The flat line rings in my ear. Can you hear me? Can you hear the land? Listen. Our prose winner is a story by Kathleen Landell, Fragile Heap. Kathleen is on the West Coast, I forget which state, but she gladly sent her cousin Gail Fox, who will come up and read a portion of the story. Ladies and gentlemen, Gail Fox.
Aloha. I'm quite honored by this, and so is my cousin Kathleen. The story is Fragile Keep, and she lives in Whidbey Island in Washington State. We are of Hawaiian ancestry, and this story comes out of a lot of pain and loss at a very young age. And The theme of her story, she said, sums up in this line near the end of the story. Every family has fragile, unspoken stories, bitter and hard times that are best forgotten and not passed on. When we were talking about this and how she wanted to present it, I was at first kind of, a little taken aback by this theme, because for me, these bitter past stories, when they aren't discussed and they aren't passed on, everyone suffers, and the young especially suffer, and they don't know why they suffer because nobody talks about it. But what this story also represents is discovery, and that there were actually gems that unfortunately get lost in the packing away and the shoving away of these bitter stories. And so actually this is a story of discovery and an opportunity to learn more. And we're gonna start after she pulls the box out of the attic. Carefully lifting the bundles, I pushed the box aside and set the stack before me. I could feel the cardboard edges of the top bundle and gently unwrapped it to find a familiar photo. It was one of my favorite photos of my grandmother sitting at a piano, head cocked slightly to the camera and dressed in an elegant Victorian blouse and floor-length skirt. This was from her days as a classical pianist and singer performing across the country in the 1920s on the Chautauqua circuit. My grandmother had regaled me with stories of this vibrant time in her life. She barely talked about anything else from her past, like growing up in St. Paul, Minnesota, in her proudly Swedish-American family. Right beneath the photo rested the book about the history of the Chautauqua that my aunt had given to her mother. Sure enough, there was Aunt Louis, inscription from Christmas 1970. It held a musty smell as I flipped through the pages, looking for what I knew must be hidden among the historic photos. There it was, right in the middle, the Mozart Quartet, photo marked above by my grandmother with a red X and the word me. One white wrapped bundle was left, floppy and awkward. It felt like a stack of papers. I peeled back the tissue to reveal the brittle yellow paper. It was a performance program announcing the opening day of the 1924 Swarthmore Chautauqua. I was awestruck, holding this fragile historic relic in my hands. This I had never seen before. The program's creases were worn and barely holding the pages together. I turned the first page and reverently laid the program open to its 2-page center spread. Above the photo of the orator, Frank Dixon, presenting a lecture on lawlessness, were the Victorian maids and my grandmother's recognizable pose at the piano. Glancing to the right-hand page, I drew in my breath sharply. I felt dizzy, thinking that maybe I had gone through Alice's looking glass. In stark contrast to the Victorian maids was a quintet, a woman in the middle, flanked by 2 men on each side. They were beautifully dressed in all white, making their dark skin and hair even more pronounced. The members of Vieira's Hawaiians wore 2 intertwined leis and held a ukulele or guitar. One man was seated with what looked like a slack key guitar on his lap. I was confused. Why had my grandmother, mother, and aunt kept this from me? This fact that my grandmother had toured with Hawaiians. The shock of this admission seemed unbelievable. My mother had married my father, a native Hawaiian attending Notre Dame. He was also a performer and had a career as a Hawaiian singer during the Hawaiian Renaissance. Now, granted, my parents had painfully divorced when my sisters and I were toddlers. Those were the early 1950s when divorce was unacceptable, and my Catholic father was excommunicated from the church. My mother fled with her girls to Denver to start a new life close to her sister and remarried within a year. My stepfather became the dad that raised me. I pulled out my phone to look at the wedding dinner photo I had found of my mother and Hawaiian father. Looking at it again, I noticed that my mother was the only one in her family smiling. Her mother, sister, and my great-grandmother gazed out grimly toward the camera. Why had I not recognized this before? Questions were flooding my mind. What had my grandmother's experience meeting and touring with Hawaiians in the 1920s? Oh, I'm sorry, what had been my grandmother's experience meeting and touring with Hawaiians in the 1920s? How did she react when her obedient but flighty oldest daughter announced she had fallen in love with a young Hawaiian man? Had grandmother been accepting of an interracial marriage? It would be over a decade before the Loving versus Virginia court decision. I needed answers. I glanced back at my phone and saw it was getting late, but maybe there was still time to get some answers. Carefully setting aside the bundle of treasures, I quickly threw the other items back in the box. The dusk had turned to the chill of night as I locked the house up, set the bundles gently in the passenger seat, and tossed the box in the trunk. I didn't have far to go. Thank you.
So our third winner is Tanya Good for nonfiction for her essay, My New Normal. Tanya, you're here, yes? Well, come on over here. Yes. Tanya was one of my best and most hardest working students I've ever had in an English 100 class, I have to say. She's going to do great things, including a great reading.
Hello. And thank you for having me.
If you want me to say Tanya's essay, and I hope you pick this up and read it. It's very powerful, very personal, which is why she's having a little trouble standing up in front of a bunch of people she doesn't know and reading it. But it is beautiful and it is empowering. And I think she would rather people read it than she speak it aloud. So let's just give her a big hand. You want to say some more, or are you good?
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I think Susan's going to tell us where to get food and drinks and books and stuff.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for those really wonderful readings for the student writers. Let's see, our next Out Loud is on April 13th at 5 o'clock with the Bamboo Ridge Writers, and it'll be in Halea'o at 107. So it's April 13th at 5 o'clock. So I hope to see some of you there. We have a reception and a book signing and Pueo copies for everybody. And it'll be outside, right outside the entrance of the library. So if you can go up the stairs, go out to the library, and it'll be in the breezeway. You can talk to the writers and have a little light refreshments. So thank you again. It's been wonderful to see you all.